Hello and welcome to my little look at Darkout, a game released onto Steam by Allgraf games in the beginning of December last year, I believe. I got it in a bundle myself. I hadn't really heard about it before then and decided to read a bit about it before I played it myself. And what I read was initially mostly negative reviews. A lot of people thought it was just a bad Terraria clone. It definitely looks like that at the first sight and when you first start playing it. But then I also read people who said that this game can hold its own and you can't really compare them because this game differs from Terraria in certain ways. So it retains what made Terraria fun, but it also has its own unique features. So first of all, obviously the graphics are different. Whether you prefer the Terraria graphics or not, that's really up to you. I think they both have their charm. I will refer to Terraria a lot because that's the only other craft and survive game that I've played. I'm not sure if you should call this a survival game. It calls itself a survival game, but it's mostly about crafting and digging and stuff. When I first started playing it, I thought the controls were a bit iffy. The character it's a bit weird to control, and the way she or he collisions with objects can be a bit frustrating sometimes. Figuring out how to interact with objects, which key to press, and how to pick up items and how to make them interact with each other can be a bit tricky sometimes, but I thought that in Terraria as well, so I'm thinking maybe I'm just stupid. So yeah, Darkout, what is it all about? It is about digging and it is about crafting, and that way it is very similar to Terraria. You got your crafting here. It has a lot more to craft than Terraria, I'd say. I haven't really discovered everything, but if we look just at the building component, if you look just at what you can do with copper things, you can do several different wall panels, which I've done here, for instance. Whoops, wrong key. You can, I've chosen one wall panel for the first 4 levels, and then I've started a different up here, as you can see. I don't have a back wall fully covered, that's why there are still enemies in here. Lots of the machines that I build require energy, so I need to build, for instance, a generator. Got different kinds of furnace and stuff. Otherwise, you know, the general things are the same. You need different kinds of ores, you can do different kinds of armor, but you can definitely craft more different things. You can also do a lot of just decorative things that hold no purpose, just to decorate your base, basically. Like here, for instance, let's see, we got furniture. I can do a chemical dispenser. It doesn't really fill any purpose other than giving some flavor to my base, for instance. And there are some things it does better and some things it does worse than Terraria. For instance, you can do the whole triple digging. I'm going to show you. When you dig into the ground, you can choose whether you want to do a triple dig like this or a single dig just by pressing M, really. That's something I really like about this game, is that you can do 3 digs at once. It also shows you where ore is, like this, by just little glints, without having to use any items or specials, like you have to in Terraria, for instance. This game, one of the things that bothered me about it initially is that it's extremely dark. You'd think that's obvious from the name of the game, but it is very, very dark. And initially you don't have access to many lights, and you will feel like the torches you do have initially are not enough. As you can see here, as I walk down now, my suit actually illuminates a bit, but if you the starting suit that you have obviously doesn't do this, so you will be a lot in darkness. You will have to use a lot of torches. My suit also uses energy, as you can see up in the left corner. The purple bar down there I think is experience, so that's how you gain more HP, for instance. Whoop, fell down a bit there. One thing it does worse than Terraria, at least what I've seen so far, is that the enemies aren't very diverse. I've encountered maybe, not counting the background enemies like these that don't attack you, maybe 7-8 different enemies so far, and I've played for more than 20 hours and gone pretty far down the deeps, and they also reuse skins and stuff, so they're not very diverse. They're also not very difficult. I have died to enemies in this game, but it's not like in Terraria where you get swarmed by enemies. The enemies don't come chasing after you all the time, which personally I think is kind of good. You can concentrate a lot on the digging instead if you want. This game also has like elevators and sleds and stuff, so you can get quickly from point A to point B. It has teleports that you get pretty early. One thing I really like about this game as compared to Terraria is that it has a story. Now I haven't gotten very far into the story, so I can't say if it's going to end well or if it's a cool story, but what little I've done seems quite cool. It has a sci-fi feel to it, obviously, and it definitely has me wanting to know more about what's happened here. As you dig around, you will occasionally find little caches with more information or just items, just as in Terraria. They're not as prevalent. In Terraria I feel like you find chests everywhere, and it's something obviously that makes Terraria very fun. Here I found a corpse of mine. Oh look, I have old gear. Let's pick that up. Oh, being attacked. Let's hope I don't die. There you go. I want that shit. I picked a couple of random reviews of Steam to try and give you some examples of what people have been saying. This guy cracks me up. He has 152 hours on record and still doesn't recommend it. And there's actually a couple of comments say that if you play it for that long, clearly there's something about the game that is fun. But at least this guy knows what he's talking about then, I guess. And what he is complaining about is the end game, that there isn't much of it once you have fully researched the tech tree, which seems to be quite vast, but still there isn't much to do except trying to figure out the story, and the story is a bit weirdly implemented at the moment apparently. This guy, he thinks that the developers seem to have given up on the game and it doesn't seem to be updated anymore. There's something I've read before. It's difficult for me to comment on because they did recently release a new update, and as far as I know they are working on updating the game, but it's going slowly because they're a very small team, so people think it's going too slowly, or it seems like they're not trying at all. This guy, he thinks it's still incomplete and broken. I think some people are a bit bummed that they released it, like this guy says, as it was a complete game, and they take full payment for it, even though there is a lot that still needs to be done. The way I'm playing it now, I haven't really encountered any bugs or anything, but that is something that a lot of people are complaining about. But I haven't noticed anything, so as of this date, at least in June 2014, that a lot of the bugs seem to be gone in the game. This is from 19th of February, as you can see. So let's check some of the better reviews. This guy has almost 100 hours on record and says it's a crafter's dream come true, and I can definitely agree. I'm normally not very into crafting myself, but Darkout really has implemented it in a fun way. It's very intricate, there are many details to keep track of. It reminds me a lot of the engineering profession in World of Warcraft, if you've played that to any extent. Like if you want to build, say, a machine, you might need 4 different components. Those components in turn might need components and so on. If that's something that you find is a bit overcomplicated or something, then this is definitely not the game for you. But on the other hand, if you love shit like that, this has a lot of that, so it's quite fun. This guy finds the game atmospheric. That's something I've read a lot about from other people who like the game, is that it has a good atmosphere. It doesn't really have the cheery graphics of Terraria and Starbound. It's more, obviously it's very dark, has a more, maybe a more sinister, if you could use that word, feel to it. I personally don't really agree with that, that it should be like a feeling sinister or scary or creepy in any way. I felt Terraria was creepier because the enemies were more difficult. But it has a nice atmosphere to it. I definitely agree with that. This guy also has over 100 hours on record. He highly recommends the game, gorgeous graphics, and also talks about good atmosphere. He likes the combat and likes the weapons, and also says that he haven't had any issues really with bugs or anything like that. So yeah, overall I think this game is quite fun actually. If you like these kinds of games. What people seem to be bummed about is that it's a kickstarted game, and the developers seem to have not really kept on their promises. It's supposed to have multiplayer, for instance, and they haven't implemented that yet, although it was supposed to be implemented now in June. Apparently, what I've read from their forums is that they lost a coder from their team, so they simply are undermanned right now. They're definitely something they want to implement, but they don't have the team they had when they started out doing this game. And that's something I can appreciate with an indie developer. You know, things change, you're a small team. It's something that you have to expect, I think, from indie developer, really. That is what set them apart from the big names, big game developers. But some people kind of want to not encourage that kind of behavior. If you kickstart a game, you should be able to live up to the promises, and I can definitely understand that. Another problem people have with this game is that they have released it as a complete game, although when it was released it was still very buggy and lacked a lot of content. And I agree, you should never release a game that isn't really complete. Obviously, and demand people to pay full price for it. I forgot to mention, you got the research system. You need components to research things as well, and you need to be at the right place, obviously, to research them. Something some people like and some people don't like. I quite like it, actually. It adds an extra touch to the game. Some people think it's just unnecessary, but I think it's quite fun. You get new things. I don't really have the components for these yet, so I can't research them. Booster boots I've found in chests, so I haven't had to research that to build them. So why should you play this game instead of Terraria? That's a difficult question, really. Like I said, this game doesn't have multiplayer. That's something that is a drawback, if you ask me. Although I really enjoyed playing it on my own as well. It hasn't been a problem for me, but I know a lot of people find it quite important and fun to have multiplayer in these kind of games. Well, what it has over Terraria is it has a more interesting crafting to it, if you ask me. It has a story, which Terraria lacks. I can't say much about endgame. I haven't gotten that far into the game yet, and I know it's not fully complete yet. But if you like crafting, if you like the whole digging to see what you find next, this game has that. It definitely has that. I don't think it has it as well implemented as Terraria. I would say Terraria is a better buy. They cost about as much right now. But if you played Terraria for hours on end and you want to try something else that is quite similar but not exactly the same, then this is definitely something worth checking out. I think that's definitely the case. So thank you very much for watching.